This whirlpool sucks me, I can't.
Hello, test. Yeah, okay, I think the mic is on. Everything should be fine. So, hello everyone, welcome to another stream. Today's lecture, it's not really a lecture, I guess, but today's stream will be more lecture based. I'll be sharing some tips and a lot of educational stuff. But after we get past like the basics and we start building a solid repertoire, there will be a challenge segment where we'll be testing the robustness of this repertoire, so on and so forth. So at that time, or you can even just send a challenge right now. Feel free to send blitz challenges, and I'll accept them when we get to the portion where we test out our repertoire. But anyway, how did you guys like the new opening theme, I guess, that you listened to earlier? It's original music from one of my friends. So if you think it sounds kind of cool, feel free to just check him out. He's on YouTube under the name Trachosaurus Rex, as you might have seen on the opening card, I guess. So yeah, if you think you like that kind of music, feel free to check him out. And alright, so today, right, we are going to be trying to build a brand new repertoire. And the reason why I came up with this stream idea was because that, I have been doing decently, I think. I've been participating in like tertiary, like, university and below level chess tournaments. I think I've been doing decently, not too great, but not too terrible as well. And I find myself being a bit too results oriented. So what I mean by that is that I would, learn openings or prepare openings based on my opponents. So for example, if I detect that someone has a weakness playing certain type of positions, I will learn an opening to create those kinds of positions. And most of the time, I will be able to make that work. Like quite a lot of the times, my opponents will literally just walk into my positions, and I'll get favorable positions against that. But the result of that is I end up playing a lot of positions that either I'm comfortable with, or because I'm so used to manipulating like these positions, right? My overall, like, the completeness, or maybe like the holes in my repertoire are a bit too large. And when I bang my head against like stronger players who are much stronger than me, the lack of the difference in technique becomes very, very apparent. So I decided to, since I was very busy in the previous semester, I haven't streamed that, I don't think at all, like maybe once or twice. And I was also super busy, no time to study chess. So that's like a good reset period, right? I'm like much worse than I was 1 year ago. So might as well take the opportunity to relearn the basics. So besides technical stuff, I also want to commit to a completely new opening repertoire. Okay, maybe not completely new, but I want to commit to a new opening repertoire and to change my play style and compete in tournaments in a way that, I'm going to stick to my repertoire instead of trying to prepare specifically against specific opponents. Now, obviously, preparing against opponents is a part of the game, right? It's not saying that it's not fair or like you're a bad player for doing that, but I just want to take into account like my overall growth as a chess player instead of being too focused on winning the game and being more focused on improving like my understanding of the game instead. So with that in mind, let's actually get into the guide session on what you should do. Like if you are, let's say, a new player, or maybe you're just starting to get serious, maybe you're a new club level player, or maybe you want to take things to the next level, and you say, you know what, besides just playing for fun, knowing how the pieces move and getting some general meta understanding, I want to take things to the next level. I want to have a proper repertoire. What should I do? So in my opinion, there are a few main ways to go about it. But first of all, as you that were notifications. I hope that doesn't show up on stream. I think the sound does, but that's weird. Turn with everything. Sorry about that. Anyway, as you can see over here in the opening session, opening repertoire often refers to like knowing or understanding the first few moves of the game, right? So if you're actually a new player, that might be as simple as the first 5 moves or first 4 moves, where you simply decide whether you want to play e4 or d4, and then what happens if your opponent does like the main replies and what you do afterwards and things like that. But if you're maybe intermediate player or club player, that might mean knowing the names of openings, knowing the different matchups, the traps, the common tricks and traps of the opening, maybe knowing up to 10 moves, something like that. Or if you're like me who prepares specifically for an opponent, there will be openings where I only know the name, and there are other openings where I know like over 20 plus moves deep into the opening. Because of a specific line that I know my opponent likes to go through and things like that. So it basically comes down to the first few moves. And the critical question is, what is the first move that you want to play? We're going to start from the white's perspective, right? Because white, you get the first move, you have some sort of initiative and you can sort of play in your own system, rather than black, where you have to either prepare more openings to create the same positions, or you have to be more responsive and react to your opponent if you only want to learn one opening, one defense. So with white, the most common starting moves, as you can see here from the opening book, is it called opening book? Opening Explorer and table base. The most common moves are e4, d4, knight f3, and c4. The rest we can ignore because you can see that they are significantly lesser played than the first four options, right? So how do you know which opening you should go for? Now, personally, I believe that you should switch from time to time so that you can understand more types of positions. But let's say it's your first repertoire. I think a good way to start things off would be to just go for a chess personality test. So you can just search it up on Google, search chess personality or chess personality quiz, and then you will be able to, so I'm just checking if it shows up on stream, but you'll be able to find quizzes. It doesn't have to be this one. There are similar quizzes on like chess.com, chess24, chessbase, other websites as well, and you can simply take the quiz where it will sort of give you several positions or several images to try and guess your personality and try and infer what types of positions that you like to play. If you're a complete beginner, ones that show positions might not be so suitable because you might not understand what's going on in this position. But you can pick ones that are more personality, like more traditionally personally based, like they'll show you pictures of flowers and which flower you like more, and or like elements, which element you like more, and things like that, where it's more beginner friendly. But it's the same purpose. But at the end of the day, I'm just going to answer some random options just to show you the output of the quiz. I'm not going to go through the quiz because I have played a lot of games. I have somewhat I have an idea of what my positions that I'm comfortable with are and what I like to play and things like that. But anyway, after you have completed the quiz, you can see over here there will be a chess personality, and then there will be like some example famous players who have a similar playstyle. This is very important. And then there will be some recommended openings over here. So the thing is, you don't have to pick it immediately, but you can just remember all these names: Vasily Ivanchuk, Ray Lopez, Sicilian Defense. And then you can just search up first the opening on Wikipedia, for example, and just read through the things and see how the opening is like and what are the main ideas. So for example, I've decided to base my new repertoire around the Reti opening, which is this one over here, as you can see on Wikipedia. So Reti opening is basically knight f3, d5, c4. So this is like a modern characterization of the Reti opening. Now, you can go on and read. Okay, so Reti opening is a hyper-modern chess opening that begins with these moves. So you can see the picture over here is like those moves. And then the idea is like, you attack the pawn from the flank, and then you will normally couple this time with a kingside fianchetto with g3, bishop g2, and attack on the light squares, named after the famous people over here. It's called Reti system. Okay, that's all we need to know. And then let's see over here some famous games that this opening was played in. For example, in 1924 New York Chess Tournament against World Chess Champion Capablanca, Jose Raul Capablanca. We also have Alexander Alyoshin, who played the Reti in 1920s. Hypermodernism and like simple things like these, and then there are like a couple of transpositions and a couple of common lines. So after reading this, you may get a sense of like what the opening is about. For example, if the game or maybe the quiz tells you that you're a romantic player, where you like unusual and unique ideas, but then when you go to the openings very low pass, you search the common lines, it's like, oh, it's a lot of theory, it's not romantic at all. Maybe you might search Vasily Ivanchuk instead and then see what games he plays, what is his opening repertoire, and maybe try to mold your repertoire based on a famous player like Vasily Ivanchuk, for example. And maybe you might come to a conclusion that, you know what, maybe a King's Gambit is more romantic than maybe Ray Lopez, which in a modern day has like tons of theory, a lot of memorization. You don't get the opportunity to execute your romantic ideas anyway. So that's an example of how to get started, right? So for example, since I'm beginning with the Reti opening, there are also many other sources, free sources, where I can get some information to determine whether or not this opening is for me. For example, even on the Lichess analysis board, you can see over here, this is just a plain Lichess analysis board. You can just play the first few moves of the opening. You can always refer to the Wikipedia page if you forgot. Knight f3, d5, and c4. Knight f3, you can see like this is the Reti opening, but it's not actually considered as a Reti yet. It's only after d5 and c4 that we get the Reti opening. And here you can see like some brief description of it as well. It's quite similar to the Wikipedia page, but more importantly, there are some references over here. Some are references on general chess openings, for example, Bedford Chess Openings 2, but there are more specific chess books related to this opening. For example, Flank Openings and Winning with the Reti Opening by Ken Smith and John Hall. John Hall, Chess Digest Incorporated. So these books are very important because, in my opinion, if you don't have a good understanding of the opening, or maybe you are more beginnerish, having books to read through it may be tedious, but it's actually a more comprehensive way for you to understand the opening in the fastest way possible. I know some people will say that, you know what, just keep playing the opening over and over again, but then you just learn lines and you learn through try and error. You learn the moves, but you don't really understand the ideas. So especially for openings which are more modern, like the Reti, or maybe if you're playing something like a King's Indian defense, these openings, I don't think is as good if you just play try and error. Rather, it's more important for you to learn the ideas and maybe read through some opening books, some famous games, and analyze those instead. So I have, for example, besides, I couldn't find a copy of this Winning with the Reti opening, but I found an online copy of this book over here, The Easy Guide to Reti Opening. It's a paperback from 1998. So if you want to learn the Reti as well, maybe this is a good choice because it is very simple, I guess. It's not too advanced. They give a few lines and it's a very beginner-friendly explanation. Obviously, since it's a very old book, it's 1998, it's probably not the newest lines, but giving the basic ideas and a few lines to start with can give you a solid foundation. Then you can improve, learn the trendy topics and other things like that. So by reading about the description from this book, right, the Reti opening is one of the most subtle ways for White to open a chess game. At very little risk to himself, White prepares to chip away at Black's position. Reti openers often find themselves in lost positions without knowing exactly how it happened. Such is the case with this opening. So this is part of the reason why I picked the Reti as the center of my opening repertoire. You can base it on several different things. I want to base it upon starting with knight f3 c4. And the reason is because I like to play closed or semi-open positions. I like to slowly improve my position. I like to outmaneuver my opponent, and I also, how do I put this? Like more strategical games. Like for example, with Black, I like to play the Pogo Indian because it's very strategical. There's oftentimes White is tempted to close down the position, so you get to have some time to maneuver and like fight against attacks and things like that. It's very interesting for me. And also Reti openings, like the advantages you get from it may not be as explosive or filled with fireworks, like with, let's say, an e4 opening, but it can lead to advantageous endgames, which can help my other part of improving my chess understanding by forcing me to learn and be better at endgames, learn the common endgames and pawn structures of the reti opening, and be able to improve my technique from that end as well. So that's part of my motivation of playing the reti opening. Another reason why I decided to settle on the reti is because although I've played a lot of e4 and d4, I've also played a lot of knight f3 previously, but I played more old school queens gambit decline kind of position where I will go for minority attacks and or maybe a kingside attack, something like that, along the light squares. So creating a new repertoire around a hyper-modern flank opening instead might be able to counter preparation for the brief period where I'm still adjusting and switching my repertoire from my old repertoire to my new repertoire. Right? It's not too different, but so I can always fall back, and it gives me flexibility in the future after I've mastered both repertoires. I'll be able to switch switch around and be more unpredictable in tournaments and things like that. So with that being said, let's head over to the study. Like, this is the blank study. All the links can be found in the YouTube description. So if you're on Twitch, I guess I can just copy paste it into chat, so you can follow along as well. I'm just going to paste it here in chat. But yeah, all of the links, whether it be to the study, to resources or whatever, will be in the YouTube stream description. Yeah, so I think that's that. So okay, so first chapter, I want to start an opening repertoire for white, and I want to base it around reti. So the reti opening is going to be knight f3, d4 and c5. d5 and c4. So I think first of all, I'm just going to go to Wikipedia and see what are the common common lines, and just copy them in here first before trying to understand anything. So after c4, we see the classical method. Okay, to c4, black's choices are e6, c6, c takes c4, or d4. So I'm just going to copy that into the study. So there is a c6, there's a d6, there's a d4, so d takes c4. So these are like all the moves that make sense, right? When your pawn is attacked by a pawn, you'll often want to defend your pawn with another pawn. Which pawn, there are different implications of that. Another way to approach this is to actually take the pawn first, or you can push to prevent the pawn from being taken because it is defended by your queen. So all of these different variations have a lot of different implications, but let's just go back to the Wikipedia page to see what the lines first. Okay, if black takes a pawn, then in the same manner as the queens can be accepted, 3e3 or 3e4 regain the pawn with a slight advantage to white, as black is somewhat undeveloped. So if, let's say, d takes c4 is played, then either e3 or e4, similar in the queens can be accepted to regain the pawn using the bishop, and Wikipedia claims that white will have a slight advantage because of the center and the lead in development. 3 knight a3 and 3 queen a4 check are also good and commonly played. So besides playing e3 or e4, white can also choose to regain the pawn using queen to a4 check, or more interestingly, knight to a3, putting your knight on the edge of the board. So this isn't something that you will see very often, but Wikipedia claims that this is good as well. And common play. This variety of white options limits the popularity of 2 d takes c4. Trying to protect the pawn with b5 allows a4, leaving white with a superior position. So, oops. So I guess that refers to like the e3, e4 lines, where if b5 is played, a4 can be played to attack the base of the pawn chain, and if a6 is played, then the rook will be pinned. the pawn will pin to the rook. So this would be advantageous for white if black chooses to cling too tightly to the pawn. Hence, where is it? Yeah, the alternatives to d4, c6, and e6 are more common, with the latter two generally leading to a queen's gambit type position, with 2d4 typically being answered with e3, sometimes leading to the Blumenfield gambit or the interesting 3b4. Let me just copy everything here. Alternatives to d4. Oh wait, those are all the other lines that I've already noted. So 2d4, c6, these are more common, with the latter 2 and 2d4 being typically answered with e3. So 2d4 typically answered with e3, sometimes leading to the Blumenfield gambit or the interesting b4. So b4 actually is the most common move, as you can see here. p4 is the most common move. Oh, okay, interesting. So we don't know what these moves are yet. We don't know why b4 is interesting or why b4 is played, but that is what we see over here. So we will copy this. I guess I should rename this to be white Betty from Wiki. So that rhymes. This is copying everything from Wikipedia. Interesting b4. So transpositions, you can transpose in the queen's gambit decline. You have to be aware of that. And g3 times 6 is the neo-Catalan opening, transpose post-Catalan, Slav, semi-Slav. Okay, so these we can take note of, but we don't have to focus on that first. We will focus on learning the Reti opening, and we are going to only look at the other auxiliary openings or like the other complementary openings afterwards, after we have properly solidified our Reti repertoire. So after looking at this, and then we can go back to our study and actually try to maybe, okay, let's find a few more lines first, a few more lines from the Lichess opening explorer. So white, Reti, but this time is from Lichess player base. So because the wiki, right, might be for serious play or things like that, sometimes you, instead of if you don't play in tournaments that much yet, or you want to learn some repertoire or some lines for online play, then maybe it will be a better choice to also supplement your lines with some lines from Lichess. I'm going to switch to the Lichess database. My rating is 1900, so I don't need to look at like these like 200, 2500. I don't need to look at correspondence or classical, I don't think. And I just look at all of these over here. So 1600, 1800, and 2000. So I'll look at the games from these ratings, and then I'll just play the Reti over here. And we can see that the most common response is to take c4. Although Wikipedia earlier claimed that like this is like the worst objectively out of all of the options, it is most commonly played at my level. So I would be most interested, if I were only read Wikipedia, right, I would say that, oh, you know what, d takes c4 is like so bad, nobody plays it, so I don't have to care about it so much. And that is probably true for the Masters database as well. But after looking at the Lichess database, I'll know that, hey, you know what, d takes c4 is more natural for players at my level, so I actually need to be more focused about those moves. And besides d takes c4, there's also d4 and c6 and e6 as well. So beyond that, there is a steep drop, so it's like below 100,000 games. So I'll focus on these 4 moves first, and you can tell that these are very similar with the common moves from the Wikipedia page as well. And let's see if there are any differences over here. After d takes c4, I guess this is similar. There's a3, there's queen a4, there's knight a3, there's e4. So a lot of the first few moves are still very similar. And if d4, which is also very popular, there's also e3, there's b4. Okay, so it's very similar with the Wikipedia page. So that's nice to see. This is not always the case. For example, if you're playing maybe a more, let's say, popular opening, maybe you play something like, I don't know, Italian game, you play the advanced gambit or something like that, then the moves you see in the Lichess database and the moves you see in professional masters database is going to be very, very different. So for me, because of the Reti is, I guess, not that popular of an opening compared to other openings, the moves are pretty much the same. It's just that the picking of lines is different. Like the number and the popularity of these lines are different. And after this, I'm going to refer to the book. I haven't read the book at all. I'm going to show once again. It's the Easy Guide to the Repertoire Opening. I found a online version of this book, and I'm not going to show it because I'm not going to encourage any behavior, but I'm just saying if you search online, you might be able to find a copy in the library or whatever. I haven't read it at all, but the nice thing about books is that they not only provide you with lines that you can find from, like, let's say Wikipedia or um, or opening databases, but they provide you with pawn structures and things that you can study. So I'm just going to copy the main lines that the book gives. So I'm not going to go into the details or the explanations, but I'm just going to copy the main lines. So white, ready from book. Right. So the common chapters that are given. Oops, another sound. I guess I should just quit all of these. Okay, should be no sounds for now. So there's knight f3, d5, c4. This is the ready, of course. And the first chapter is d takes c4. Next chapter is d4. And then there's so far it's the same. But the third chapter is actually a bit more long. It's a c6, d3, knight f6, g3, knight f6 and g3. So this is the next line variation that they give. And chapter 4 is the same thing, but instead of c6, e6 is played instead. So b3, knight f6 and g3. So this variation was given. Yep, and they also give a variation for Dutch systems. So knight f3, f5. Don't have to go too deep into that because that is not really the Reti, I guess. But the book does provide a line that can sort of create Reti-like positions. There's also knight f3, knight f6. So if a transposition from the Indians, I guess. Knight f3, knight f6, g3, g6, b4. g3, g6 and d4 is a line given. So we can see over here is the Smith-Loaf variation. So these are the 6 chapters within the book, and ideally you will want to read the book first to understand all of these lines and to get a brief understanding of your repertoire. But since I'm here without reading the book and trying to learn the game from scratch, my opinion, what I'm going to try to do is to actually emulate the lines from famous players or from other players. Right, so you've seen from wiki, from Lichess, from book. Another source that you can get your lines from is from articles. So white, ready from articles. While I was thinking about what to do for this stream, I recall reading an article from over a year ago, by ChessBase. It's this article over here. You can see it's published in 2021, January 18. So I remember reading this article because I'm currently based in Singapore, and I remember seeing this article being written by Grandmaster Kevin Go, if I remember correctly, but maybe it's not. I remember it was written by, so over here, a big kickoff to Singapore Chess in 2021. It was written by Grandmaster Kevin Go, and it was basically a write-up and a brief analysis on a tournament that was held in the new year. So I remember that while reading this tournament, there were a few games within the Reti opening, and which Grandmaster Kevin Gore described the games as textbook examples of how a Reti opening should go. And therefore, I decided to use it as one of my source for lines as well, and games to analyze and try to understand what the Reti is about. So I'm just going to Control F and search the Reti. So you can see it's retired, theoretical, Reti. So you can see over here, most impressive feat is by Anglo-Chinese school independent youngster Jaden Wong's controlled overpowering of the 2010 Singapore national champion, FIDE master Daniel Chan. In a textbook Reti system, he controlled the dark squares admirably and snuffed out all counterplay and finally crashed through the queen side. So this is the is it this game? Jaden Wong versus FM Daniel Chan. Yeah, I think this is the game. b3 d5, b2 knight f6, knight f3, bishop b5, b3, h6. So it came from a different move order, but this is a somewhat similar position as what we saw was recommended in the book. In the book over here, it's somewhat similar to this line. You see, after like moves like these are played, it's basically from somewhat of a transposition, right? So this is like the opening position that we want to look at and build upon. So we can copy the move order from the book to achieve that position. So knight f3, d4, d5, c4, and then it's c3, b3, maybe knight f6, g3, bishop here, then maybe bishop g2, close the pawn chain, castles, bishop e7, bishop to b2, and we have managed to successfully reach the opening position that was achieved in the article. So we can stop over here, and then it's actually d3 instead of c3, my bad. So there's h6 involved instead, but this is also fine. I was keeping an eye on the Lichess database, and it seems like these are still moves that are played, so nothing should be too wrong so far. And in fact, there might even be a transposition afterward, right? So after c6, c6 d3, so kind of like c6 d3. So something like this is also still very similar with what we can see over here. So maybe after castles, d3. So this is like some of the opening that you can find from the article. And more importantly, we'll come back to this later. We will try and analyze, read the analysis, and kind of see some of the common ideas, maybe that any tactics if there are, and look at some of the opening positions. And let's check. I think there's another Reti game. Yeah. So Jaden, because he's a Reti player, also played another Reti system against Susilo. So is the game featured here? Jaden enters Susilo's purple patch when the latter blundered to join lead. So I don't think that maybe the game isn't featured here. I mean, you can go to chessresults.com and look for the game. Did they provide all of the games? So it wasn't analyzed. But if you need more games to look at, let me just scroll all the way down. Oops. Scroll all the way down. Select chess results page. Also, there is a Lichess. Oh, so it was played. Here, wait, is this it? Yeah, and based on this, Jaden was number 17. So we can go to number 17. Yeah, so CM Jaden over here. And then we can look for the games from here, I guess. And is it this one? I think it's this one. And look at the games from there and analyze those lines. So I mentioned was here. Susilo's purple patch streak. when the latter blundered a piece after 40 moves of another Reti system. 6.5 out of 7. So game after game 7. So game 7. So it's this one, I think. Yeah, so it's this one. So it's a very similar position actually. Wait, is this that game? Wait, which game is this? So you see a game over here. And the other one is where is it? Against FM Daniel Chan. I don't know. Oh, I'm so dumb. There's a link over here. BHV. Oh, so it's not this one. So FM. I think it's this one. FM Daniel Chan. Is it? Yeah, this is the BHVN. Yeah, so with this from this we are able to get like a Lichess. We are fortunate that it's organized on Lichess, so we have all of the games over here. So we identified that Jaden is a Reti player, and then we can see that a lot of games played in white, and then we can pick like the wins, the losses, and try to find games that are played in the Reti played from the Reti system and analyze games from there. But for now, I'll just have these two games and might as well import it into our study. Reading this one and put it into the study. Yep. So now we also have two games that we can look at. So I guess we can delete this chapter. We can delete this chapter because it's a duplicate from the two sample games from the article. And we can also refer to the article for the first game whenever we want to read like any lines, any notations and things like that. We can also copy paste that into the study if possible, if needed. Oh, what is this? Oh, this engine. Oh, I've never used this before. I didn't know how that works. So I guess this is an embedded chess-based thing. Cool. Alright, so do I copy this now? Do I want to copy this now? I guess not. Alright. So we have garnered. So we've garnered resources from the Wikipedia, from Lichess database, from the book, and from an article, and we've managed to get two sample games. And besides these sources, we can also look at like maybe you might say, oh, you know what, Candidate Master isn't good enough. I want even better. Then we might as well search for like Grandmasters and things like that as well. So the thing with openings, right? If you want to learn the ideas, I think it's better to study the games of old masters because in the past, there were no computers playing chess, right? So the games were a lot more romantic and a lot more idea based. Nowadays, there's a lot more brute calculation, a lot more computer ideas, a lot of computer prepared lines where it might not be so easy to understand for our level. So we can just go back to the Wikipedia page, and this is where it becomes very helpful. So we know that, of course, Reti played the opening because it's named after him, and Alexander Alyokin also played the Reti in the 1920s. But Alexander Alyokin may not have played the exact specific Reti opening with the hypermodern ideas, right? So we can search up Reti's games, or we can also specifically look for this Reti versus Capablanca game in 1924. And the way I like to do that is to go to a website called chessgames.com, as you can see over here, and simply search. Over here, you can see I've already searched a lot of tournaments and games in the past. But here we are searching for Reti against Capablanca of 1924 in the New York. I think we don't need that much detail. So Reti versus Capablanca, you can see over here in New York. Reti was white, so this one. I'll drink some water while it loads. Okay, cookies. Right. So the nice thing about chessgames.com, right, is because especially when you look for like older games or like classical famous games, you can see over here a knight in Capablanca. You can tell that this is a game of the day used in July 11th, 2007. Nice thing about this is besides providing the PGN and like you can play through the moves, a nice thing is the forum function down here as well, especially when the games are very famous. There'll be all sorts of analysis and lots of opinions and ideas on the game. Now, of course, some of the things are irrelevant to the actual chess itself, and there are also some nefarious actors when it comes to online forums. But there are also very useful ones. For example, discussions on different lines. Okay, after incorporating computer analysis, how would modern players play this, and ways that you can improve these things as well. Another nice thing about this chessgames.com is that I can just simply copy the URL, go back to our study, and I can import it directly here through URL. You can see that. Load games from lichess.org or chessgames.com. Just copy and paste it, and I can create a new chapter. And just like that, chapter 6, you can see over here, it's Richard Reti versus Jose Raul Capablanca. So I can just put the name over here, I guess, or Reti Capablanca, 1924. You can format this any way you like, but I'm just going to put it like this, and we are free to have all of the lines over here. And for further reading, we can also read the discussions over here, follow along the discussions, play along the moves, and try to understand the moves that way as well. And another nice thing is, after finding famous games like these, against like two of the greatest chess players of all time, Richard Reti, Jose Raul Capablanca, you can go search on YouTube. Search for this game. It's most certainly covered by analysts like like YouTubers like Agat Mator, for example. You can. Oh, hello. Are you even seeing the chat? Yeah, like I mentioned, this earlier portion is going to be a lot more lecture style, so I'm only going to be glancing at chat periodically. But hello, nice to see you. I don't think I've seen your name before. Hey. Yeah, so where was I? Oh yeah, so you can go to YouTube as well and search for things like that. Alternatively, after maybe you have already analyzed this game and you want to find out more, or maybe you want to find other chess masters, you can also search by opening. So for example, if I go back to Lichess, the Reti opening over here, maybe I can even go a few more lines to see if there's any specific change. But the thing I'm looking for over here is this code over here. This eco code is basically the code that the encyclopedia or chess openings classifies openings. So you can see over here that the Reti opening, regardless of whatever variation, is classified as A09. I can then go into the chess games database and just search A09, and there'll be lots of games in the Reti opening. If I want to search for a specific player, like maybe Reti, I can do that as well. Reti A09. You can see all of the games where Reti played in the specific move order. I can pick FIDE Masters or go through all of them. What is this symbol over here? Oh, it is analyzed by engine. All of them, most of them, there will be like some analysis and discussion. Here, first time, nice to meet you. Welcome. So yeah, you can search for games like this. You can just search using like more modern grandmasters. Like let's say, if you came into chess while watching Hikaru streams, for example, and you're like, Hikaru is an awesome aggressive player, but I want to learn the Reti, which maybe isn't something that he often plays. You can try your luck as well, Nakamura, and search. You can find some games that he has played in the World Rapid Championship or the US Chess Championship. Maybe this one, for example. Oops, yeah. And go through the games like these, see what the lines are, what the more modern lines are. You can see over here. It's a lot different from the games that are played by Reti himself. you can see over here b3 bishop b2 wasn't played, g3 bishop g2 wasn't played, and instead we see more of a kind of delayed d4 coming in with very classic d4 moves like knight c3, queen c2, more different style of games, which is to be expected from a newer, more modern game. You can also search, like maybe if you know Magnus Carlsen, current world chess champion. You can search his name as well, Carlsen, and you can look at his games. Your next move. This was an interesting blitz tournament. There are a lot of games that I've studied from that tournament. More modern ones, Chess.com speed chess against there's Maxwell playing that. Caruana versus Carlsen versus Mausis. You can search over here, maybe this one from 2002, and you can go through the game as well. Advanced variation, so this is something very useful if you are looking to try and understand like maybe this b4 move. You can try and analyze this game as well. So this is how you can get like different games of different flavors that can help you to build and make your repertoire more robust. Alright, so I've imported lots of stuff. Now let's to try and actually understand what is going on. So I'm just going to create a new chapter for convenience sake, and just call it white ready. Just going to create a chapter over here, and I know that the opening is like this. So I can now decide, after reading through, I'm supposed to read through the book, I'm supposed to read through the articles and things like that, but after getting some understanding, I might decide what to target first. So I might decide that, you know what, after reading the Lichess, looking through the Lichess database, I find that at my level, most players will play d takes c4. So I think that is a line that I should look into first. So after d takes c4, we have seen from various sources that there are many lines that can be played. There's e3, there's queen a4, there's knight a3 and things like that. So ideally, after reading the book, you will learn about the differences of these lines and what those lines tend to lead to, what type of positions those lines tend to lead to. You can use the engine to guide your choice, but most of the time in these openings, they won't really matter that much. Like for example, a plus 0.3, a plus 0.1, a 0.0, like these moves don't really matter that much if you don't understand the ideas or the consequential lines. So the engine doesn't really help that much in the opening, in my opinion. If you're playing, especially if you're playing such a idea-based opening that isn't like a trap or a very technical variation. Another way you can choose an opening is based on the win percentage. Okay, you might say that, oh, at my level, most players win using e3, which is the main line, so I might try to go for e3. Or you may read through recommendations, or maybe you will say that, oh, I like to play side lines, and okay, see the best performing side line over here. Maybe something like queen to c2 is very well performing. I might want to play that instead. You might try to decide on a line arbitrarily at first. Then as you explore, I'm going to arbitrarily pick, let's say knight a3, because knight a3 looks very interesting, right? Knight a3 is the most unusual move. Maybe this is the way to go. So the idea of knight a3, I can try to phantom a guess. The drawback of knight a3 is that you can no longer play a4. So in the event of b5, you can no longer play a4. However, we can see that this isn't too big of a problem, because the knight also controls the b5 square. So this becomes apparent as to why knight a3 is played. But we want to recapture using the knight, putting a knight on this square, which will be decently useful, and also prevent d5 or any sort of pawn maneuvers in that sense. We also don't want to develop our queen too early, after which maybe it could be targeted by bishop moves in the future, for example. So that may be a reason as to why we want to play knight a3. Also, we might not want to commit our pawns. In the Reti opening, it is very common to keep these two pawns, the d pawn and the e pawn, on their original squares until black has shown their hand. So the idea of developing the knight first, and of developing your bishops on the flank, is to maintain some flexibility in the center and to fight the center on a later day. So this might be another reason as to why you might want to play knight a3 over the alternatives such as e3, e4, queen a4, queen c2, and so on and so forth. So let's say I pick this line, I pick knight into a3. Then let's see what are the most common responses that are at my level. Most importantly, oh, hello, Lau. Yes, I am building my repertoire live. It's not going to be my permanent repertoire, I don't think. I will actually read the books and the articles and actually form my own opinions. But here I'm going to be showing some examples on how to exactly do that. Yeah. So maybe I'll pick this knight a3 line because it looks very, very interesting. Knights on the rim are grim or dim, but in this case it looks very justified because I want to. This knight is not going to stay here forever. It comes with a very concrete idea of taking this pawn, and the knight is not on too bad of a square after it reaches c4. So you can see that after the most common move, knight f6, I assume just giving up the pawn, knight takes c4. You can see over here that after the d pawn is gone, the only other central dominance or other central control that black has is to try and play the move e5. However, with the knights on c4 and f3, this square is secured by these two knights, which is very, very nice. And you can see in this variation, in this line, black can't really support that pawn with other pawns because the d pawn is no longer there, so d6 cannot be played. f6 can also not be played even if black wanted to, so this e5 move will be very hard to get in. And you can see that the two main moves, the three main moves in fact, are basically consolidations and recognizing that, you know what, black will not be able to play e4, will not be able to play e5, will not be able to put a stake in the center. So for example, e6 over here is simply saying that, you know what, I'm going to give up e5, but I will play e6 so that I can develop my dark square bishop and get castled. So this is the first consolidation. Maybe at a later date, after I've developed my knight, my bishop and things like that, eventually I'll play e5 someday. This is a possible interpretation of e6. The other common move is knight to c6. Maybe I need to try and prepare and defend this square a few more times before I play e5. But first, I'll just develop my knights, develop my bishop, and I'll be happy. So you can see over here, white isn't really punished for spending two moves to develop a knight, because at the end of the day, you can see that both sides have both their knights developed, and it is arguable who is better in this position. But white is happy in the fact that white has managed to trade a c pawn for a central pawn, and this may be an idea for the lines to come. So should I analyze this a bit further? You know what, since this is the most common move, I might as well look a bit further and see what are the common moves. I don't have to look at a specific line, but I can try and guess the common moves. So I might say that, you know what, giving up the pawn using the knight f6 is very, very common, and it's probably the most, I guess, correct way to play the game, because if you don't do that, you might be losing out on development. Let's see what happens if black tries to stubbornly cling onto the pawn. So we know that b5 doesn't really work in this case because the knight can simply capture the pawn, and I don't think the pawn sacrifice is anything to be happy about. There is no queen a5 tricks to check and pick up the knight, in which case the knight can simply retreat even if that were the case. So the pawn can't be defended that way. However, there is the second most popular move, bishop to e6. Now, without knowing anything about the objective evaluation of this move, it does seem that this move is a bit too costly, because while it does defend the pawn, it feels like, as you can see from the most popular move, e3 or even queen to c2, it feels like it is very simple still to just win the pawn. Because the pawn is very extended and black doesn't have any other way to further support the pawn. In fact, looking at this now, I'm wondering why can't white just capture the pawn, because after bishop captures, there is this queen a4 check over here. There is no good way to, oh, that's b5. Oh, that's b5. So just like that, I've landed a knight. So that isn't the right way to go, which is also why presumably maybe queen a4 here. In that case, after c6, again knight takes c4 can't be played because of b5 forking the two pieces. So that is good. That's a good thing to be aware of. So I guess that is some of the ideas for bishop to e6. But I think even without winning the pawn directly, okay, so e6 would be a more prudent way to go. Queen c2 is also nice, but it kind of falls into the same problems of playing knight a3 in the first place, right? You don't want to develop your queen that early, so why not go e3 and win the pawn this way? In the case where black just gives up and plays knight f6, for example, you can win the pawn using the knight. And if black trades, then you get your bishop to a nice square. You can castle, very, very nice. You have a lead in development. And if black doesn't want to leave the bishop, or if we simply leave the bishop on e3 and we play something else instead, knight g5 is very interesting as well. This is an interesting line going onto the bishop this way. Or maybe even if we just play e4, we just leave the bishop over here. This is still very nice for white, because the drawback of playing this move, bishop e6, from my eyes, seems that, you know what, you are restricting your only central pawn. After playing d5, you do allow your light square bishop to develop, which means your light square bishop is happy. But if you develop it to e6, you are preventing your e pawn from moving, which restricts both your dark square bishop and your queen as well. So this makes it even harder for black to punish the knight over here on a3, which can commonly be seen from like a bishop takes knight on a3 kind of move, which is not completely impossible because of this bishop blocking the pawn over here. So if black wants to develop or castles on the king side, g3 has to be played, and then with like g3, bishop e3, g6, bishop e6 over here, it's very, very awkward at first glance. Maybe this is a viable line, I'm not sure, I don't know, I haven't read the book or any theoretical lines, but this does seem very, very awkward. So let's see over here. Let's say bishop to e6 really is played. So what would my idea be? So now that I know some of the common lines and some of the approaches and some of the tactical tracks, for example, with c6, b5 over here, and the forks, my guess would be that this knight g5 idea is actually quite interesting. I want to try and take over here and ruin black's structure forever and take the pawn. However, one thing that I note is that after playing knight to g5, the bishop can actually escape with bishop to d5. We can then play e4 and then force the bishop elsewhere, and then we can win the pawn this way. So this looks like a very interesting and a very solid way for things to go. White managed to put a pawn in the center, has a lead in development. We can easily find squares for our pieces. Everything looks fine. I might even be able to play d4, d5 very soon, and things like that. So this looks very, very fine. Alternatively, although it's not so popular, I also see a very spicy way of playing by playing e4 instantly to try and threaten knight g5 and force the bishop to an even worse square. So what I mean by this is, right, you can see here, if let's say bishop to e6 was played, and if I play knight g5, bishop d5, although I can still play e4 because my knight defends the pawn, c6, and then I win the pawn like this. So this looks like a very perfectly fine position, but I am sort of tempted to see what happens if I play e4 first. The idea being that if black does nothing, like let's say just a nothing move like this, I'm able to go knight g5 now, and the bishop is sort of forced into a very ugly position. So it can't go to d5, it can't go to maybe I should paint this in red. It can't go to d5, it can't go here, it can't go to g4, it can't go to h3, it can only retreat or go back to its original square. So these are the only two options, and both of them look very, very bad. Of course, in this case, a6 isn't really a nothing move because it supports b5, which can be played. But even still, if white retreats, and then if I take the pawn like this looks much better than the other position where the bishop was on c6. So this is like an improvement, right? And then alternatively, if black decides to, even if black plays b5 in this case, I can still play knight takes e6, pawn f takes e6, and I managed to achieve my goal, right? I managed to achieve my goal of ruining my goal of playing knight to g5 and ruining black's pawn structure, and creating this sort of thing over here. So you can see over here, after ruining the pawn structure, I can play queen to a5, g6 is forced, and I can do all sorts of things over here. And white looks fantastic in this position. So this is one of the reasoning as to why I might, instead of playing knight, I like the knight g5 idea, but I might want to prepare it first by playing knight e4. But there might be some drawbacks to this move as well as compared to playing knight g5 instantly. And we can see that from maybe the more popular moves, more popular options, maybe the most popular option knight f6 addresses this concern. Well, you see that knight f6 attacks the pawn, so it prevents us from playing knight to g5. And also in the case where if we do play knight g5, let's say we do play knight g5 and black doesn't take the pawn, right? So let's say black goes again a3 to go b5. After taking and ruining the pawn structure, this weakness over here isn't as big of a problem. It's still a big problem, of course. Isn't as big of a problem because we no longer have queen to h5 check because the knight covers that square. And with the knight over here, black is also quicker to castle with g7, g6, bishop g7, and castles. So with open file, this doesn't look as bad. It's still bad, but it doesn't look as bad. So over here, let me just check the objective not actually evaluation made the master database. Is it played? No, it's not played. So I guess I can only check objective evaluation. Is this bad? No, it's not bad. It's also decent. So I think this looks like a very interesting way to play this sort of position. So I might decide that, you know what, this is what I want to look at. This is my way of playing. And e5 seems to do very well for players at my level. And it makes sense because we are gaining space and we're also forcing the knight to a passive position. Whether it be knight g4 or knight to d7, knight g4 doesn't scare me at the least because I think I can even just play h3 and I think I'm completely fine. The knight can't really take because my knight is still defending, so it's forced to go to this ugly square, and I think white is doing fantastic over here. So the only other option is to play knight to d7. Knight to d7. Now, I can't really play knight to g5 because then I will lose my center pawn, and I don't think that looks very good. But I can still win the pawn over here because by playing e4, I've opened up my bishop. So maybe I can play something like either bishop knight takes or bishop takes. So this looks very satisfactory. I will make that the main line of my variation over here. Maybe I should say this is called ready accepted. So this is enough for the ready accepted, and I can say that this is enough as a basic understanding, right? So 5 moves in, it's good enough because I've understood all of the different options and maybe the different natures. After this, I can play a few more games. I can analyze books, can analyze the lines further and learn all the specific variations, find all the tricks and traps and things like that. But for now, it's enough because we are just still trying to build the foundations of our repertoire. And after building a very specific, theoretical, book-heavy or countering, trap-heavy repertoire, I can say that building the foundations is actually very, very important, and if you want to do that, this is sufficient. So afterwards, besides, I'm just going to name another chapter white ready. So after that variation, we can see another popular variation on the Lichess database for my level is d4. So the advanced variation. The advanced variation, there are also multiple ways to play. There's e3, there's b4. Now, I'm very intrigued by b4 because it doesn't seem like a move that makes sense to me, so I might want to learn that move. And because if it doesn't make sense to me, most likely it will surprise my opponents as well. So that's kind of like what I like to do. You can, of course, have different reasonings, but that's the important thing is to try and understand that there are these different variations. It's good to mix lines that will commonly appear in your games with also theoretically sound and things that you can play even in tournaments if your opponent counters you and things like that. That's the key to building a solid foundation for your repertoire. So b4 is the thing that I want to study, also because I'm inspired by this Richard game over here. You can see over here there's a b4 being played. Seems like it's a theoretical idea in the Reti. So I'm going to go for this b4 line and see what the whole fuss is about. Why is this b4 often played? So let me just refer back to the Wikipedia page. After d4, b4, what are the common lines here? Oh, there's nothing here. Let's go to Lichess database. After d4, okay, it's the same. Is there anything from the games that b4 is played? I don't think so. These two games are not played with b4. Is there b4 in this game? Oh, I'm lagging a little bit. Oops. The correction here is somewhat bad. Alright, so over here, we see b4 being played. c4, g6, b4. Just going to very quickly speed through the opening. g7, bishop b2, castle, c3, fianchetto, castle. Okay, so something like this. This is some of the structure that you want to create by playing b4. Right, so let's go back to our current chapter. So it's a advanced variation, so Reti advanced. So b4. Let's just look at the common moves. What are the normal things that players on my level will play? There's knight f6. There's bishop to g4, pinning. Makes sense. There's c5. There's e6. Regarding popularity of moves, knight f6 is far superior. I guess I'll just look at the two most popular moves for now. So knight f6 and bishop to g4. So knight f6 first. What is the idea of knight f6? I think it's just developing, I guess. Black prioritizes development. And maybe something like e6 or maybe fianchetto and castles. So white can continue with white's plan. So I guess the point of b4, now that I look at it, is to not only allow fianchetto or the bishop to attack this pawn over here, but also to try and prevent c5, because that is the way black would want to capture the pawn, right? So in the advance over here, I can try and understand that this pawn is sort of overextended. Like white tries to prove that the pawn is overextended and black tries to cling to the pawn and avoid trades, right? And from black's perspective, the ways to defend the pawns are knight to c6, c5, and e5. However, fortunately for us, e5 is blocked because our knight controls that square. So the main things to worry about are c5 and knight to c6. However, if knight to c6 is played first, we are able to gain more attackers of the pawn, and we should be able to eventually win the pawn. So the more worrying, urgent manner for us to worry about is first c5, then maybe knight to c6, maybe some bishop things, some bishop moves going on with bishop fianchetto and things like that. So the more urgent threat is c5. So I guess that is the core idea of b4, because b4 sort of prevents c5 and also enables bishop to b2 to attack the pawn. But it's very interesting to note that c5 is still played at my level quite a lot. It's the third most popular move. So I think this is a line that we need to look at as well. So we'll need to look at knight to f6, which is just prioritizing development and sort of giving up this pawn over here maybe. We'll also have to look at g4, which sort of tries to trade off the bishop for the knight and enable black to play e5, and also c5, just going through with c5 and ua. Right, so knight to f6, this looks like the most theoretical, the most solid move, I guess. And we can just follow through with our plan. Bishop to b2, attacking the pawn. And over here, you can see that because black hasn't spent any time preparing the bishop or playing c5 first, black has to play knight to c6 now in order to defend the pawn. However, because of our b4 move earlier, we can now play b5 to chase away the knight. After this, I'm just going to follow the top moves for now. Queen to a4, b6 defending the knight. We can now happily win the pawn over here. So this position over here, we can take a look. What does this look like? So very interesting. We see here that this knight is somewhat stranded. It has nowhere to go. The only way back is through b7. But b7 sort of prevents white from fianchettoing, which white obviously wants to do. So the only way forward is to sort of attack this c5 pawn but there is no good way to do so because there is no d pawn left to challenge. The b pawn is obstructed by my b pawn, and if black fianchettos, then it can't really easily attack this square over here on c5. So it looks very, very favorable, and I like this position. Of course, this might not be the most right way to play this from black, but it is nice to know that if in this position, black doesn't really have a good way to take advantage of my queen over here, and if black is forced to play this, I am very happy to have this sort of position. And my knight might even be happy to come over here, sit on c6 in the future. Maybe trade itself off, but maybe stick a pawn here and annoy the next bishop, for example. So, but instead of that, let's see. Without looking at the Lichess database, are there any other ways of doing this? No. Yeah, I don't think there's any other way of doing this. If c5 is played, I guess just b takes. Knight c6 now. Also now, so the idea of c5, I guess, is so now that if after b takes, there's no more b5. So what if instead of b takes, can I push instead? What if I play b5? What if I reject this pawn, which is basically a free pawn, but I prevent the knight from coming to c6? I guess that isn't an issue as well, because the knight can still go to d7, and now that there's a pawn here, it's very hard to challenge the pawn chain. So I guess that isn't a very smart move. I think b takes c5 is still a better way to go. So after b takes c5, the idea is knight to c6, and now I don't have b5. So now that I don't have b5, I need to find more attackers for this this d4 pawn. I could play e3 to directly challenge it, or I could play d3 and say that, you know what, I'm not going to care about it, but I don't think this is a very good move. Alternatively, I could also play g3 and let this pawn stay here for now. I'm going to win it eventually. I'm just going to fianchetto and castle. But these are like the main options. What do I like? Let's see first, right? What if e3, right? Are there any serious implications of e3? Whenever I play e3, right, I'm always worried about, since there's no c pawn, I'm always worried about something like d3, for example. If d3 can be played, my bishop will be stuck here forever. My bishop might be stuck here forever. So this is quite worrying, since the queen is defending that pawn. But I can still play queen to b3. I can add another attacker. Is there any way for black to add another defender? I guess so, with bishop to f5, right? Bishop to f5. Is there any way I can still win the pawn? Because if this pawn can stick, I might not want to play e3. Okay, knight to d4 is given as a suggestion. Overwhelming win percentage, in fact, 83%. After knight to d4, okay, so this is indeed a very nice move because it not only attacks both the knight and the bishop, but it also obstructs the queen from defending the pawn. So regardless of how black plays this, for example, if knight takes and let me say bishop takes, this pawn is not only indefensible, but also now my c5 pawn is also defended. So I think this is a very beautiful position for white. So I don't think d3 is that much of an issue because black cannot force the pawn to stay on d3, so there can't be a significant positional advantage over there. So instead, rather than that move, rather than d3, are there any other worries? So with the move knight to c6, I have sort of conceded sole control over the e5 square, and concern might be e5 over here. There might be concerns of maybe e4 in the future, or maybe, in this position, black has managed to get a central control, and my pawns over here doubled on a c file might feel a bit uncomfortable. I might have failed to counter-attack. But let's see what goes on a bit further. So the most straightforward way, I can see that there are a few options, right? Wait, knight takes e5 is very interesting as well. Okay, but first let's take a look. There's e takes d4, there's queen a4, there's knight takes e5. Let's see what all of these moves do. Knight takes e5 just looks like a giving up a knight. Is this really a move or is it just blunders? Knight takes e5? What's the idea here? Okay, so it's just a blunder, I guess. After pawn takes, knight to g6, whatever. I don't think this is good enough justification unless you're saying that a pawn cube is supreme, like this. Is it maybe to farm Rosen points or something like that? Maybe just to farm Rosen points? Okay, I don't like that at all. I don't think that is any substance, so this is bad. Other two options are e takes and queen to a4. So queen to a4, the idea is simple. You want to pin the knight and you're not afraid of any b5 shenanigans because you have two c pawns. You can choose which pawn you want to take with. So queen a5, queen a4 looks reasonable. The drawback of that move is that it is not as forcing because you give black some time. You have to check whether e4 or d3 are problems in those lines. And the other line is e takes d4, which simply tries to just trade it down and prevent the e-pawn prevent black from creating any pawn chains and to chip away at the center immediately. So again, you have to check if e4 is an issue and things like that. So let's first look at queen to a4 because that has an overwhelmingly better. Oops, that's not what I meant to say. Since that has a, let me just delete that move first. Delete from here. Okay. So because it has an overwhelmingly better win percentage, queen to a4 compared to like e takes d4. Although e takes d4 has 200 games, queen to a4. Let's see what happens. Can d3 be played? Can d4 be played? Can the pawn be broken? Queen bishop to d7 is like a very major concern. So after bishop to d7, is there anything good for me? This looks a bit dangerous because I can't really proceed with e takes, because after e takes I think even knight takes. This doesn't look very good. He's controlling over here, it's over here. I might be forced to go here because I want to defend my knight and this, then we can just trade like this. Doesn't seem too great for me. Doesn't seem too great for me. I guess I can take this. I can also take this, I guess. But it feels a bit sketchy. It feels a bit uncomfortable. I might go for this if this is found in a book, or maybe it's theoretically sound. I might check with engine, and if it's really alright, I might think this is a nice line to spice things up. Okay, let's say if we don't take, what other things can we do, right? Because if we are forced to move, like let's say queen to b3, sort of try to take advantage of the fact that bishop to b7 was played, and to try and sort of keep hold over this d3 square, then it might not be so comfortable as well, because like there's bishop takes c5, and this looks quite nice for black, I think. So in that case, if queen to a5 can be easily neutralized with a move like bishop to d7 and it looks a bit uncomfortable for white, then I might as well not play that move in the first place. So instead, maybe I might try e takes d4. Takes d4, the most common things to look at are of course taking and pushing. I don't think black wants to give up the knight and more control over the center. So maybe let's take a look at e4 first because it's a bit more forcing. So after e4, what can I do? Obviously here there's knight e5, but I can also play queen e2, pin the pawn. After which there's queen to e7, and that makes knight e5 not as nice. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much what you have to do. Knight to e5. Knight to g5 doesn't work for the same reasons as why knight to g4 didn't work earlier, because black can simply play h6. So knight to e5 seems like the way to go, and if trade, I'm not really worried because my bishop is really defending that square. The knight is forced to move somewhere. This doesn't work for the same reason. I guess this is the only way to go. And this pawn is effectively gone because there are two attackers and I can't really defend it with a pawn. So this position is okay, I guess. I'm okay with this. I play e4 and then en passant. We can take with queen to dissuade this sort of capture because I'll take the queen. And then force give up like this. And then if bishop takes, there might be ideas like this as well. There might be ideas of this as well. So it does look interesting. I don't know the objective evaluation of those, but it does look interesting. So maybe I'm fine with e4 being played by black. So other move to look at is if e takes d4. This d4 looks completely fine as well. There are two attackers, two defenders, so this looks equal. In this position, I can go for queen a5 as queen a4 as well to pin in this case. Now that there is lesser threat, there's no threat of e4, there are lesser worries that I have to worry about, and the square is actually occupied by a pawn, so knight to e4 can't be played to unleash the discovered attack. Also, there can be d3 played to prevent d3, there can be bishop to d3 to develop. Now that my bishop is already on b2, the pawn stuck here isn't that big of an issue. Queen to e2 check seems terrible, so maybe I won't refer to that. Knight a3, knight to c2 is an idea as well. Knight to a3, knight to b5 is an idea as well. Maybe knight to a3 is interesting. After bishop takes, that's bishop takes. Yeah, so that might not be so nice. So maybe I might want to get my knight to this square instead. I want to get my knight to this square so I can control both c5 and d4. In that case, I might play d3 after bishop takes, and then knight to d7 to play this. This looks fine. Black can castle now, but I can play this move. I don't think I'm afraid of check because I can defend with my bishop. And after the bishop retreats, I can also castle. Then playing this position. How is this position like? I have an isolated pawn to play against, but it is obstructed by a pawn. Like my pawn structure is a bit awkward, like this pawn island over here. But I do have this pawn to play against. I think this is okay. I will study deeper afterwards to see if there are better improvements. But I think so far I am fine with this. Yeah, I think I am fine with this. Okay, any other variations to look at? So I guess these are the two main ratty lines, right? Because if c6 or e6 are played, then it's sort of can transpose into like queen's gambit decline or a Slav. And if you want to keep the ratty spirit, you have to play something like b3 or something like that instead. So that's kind of not in the ratty and maybe not what we should go for today. Maybe we should not go into that today. But now after you have gotten some lines, okay, it's not too deep. This one is 12 moves, a bit deep, but because there are more forcing lines, so it's a bit more dangerous. But in the other taken line, this is a lot more simple, because I guess it's a lot more open, a lot less pieces in play, so I feel comfortable stopping earlier. But after getting some lines, it's time to play this opening a bunch. So let me just go to Lichess. I'm going to press play with a friend. I'm going with from position, I guess. From position. I'm going to start from this position over here. I'm going to copy the friend. Play with a friend from position. time control real time, I'm going to go with blitz, maybe 3 plus 2 or something like that. And casual, I'm going to play as white. Alright, so I'm going to copy paste this link in the chat. If you want to challenge me or if you want to try out this repertoire, feel free to go ahead and do so. We'll play a couple of games to see if you can find your holes. Maybe you while I was explaining or exploring through the lines, maybe some of you have looked it up on the computer, you want to crush me with it. I'm completely fine since this is casual, and figuring out the big loopholes in the position is going to be very, very helpful. Let's just check if there's anyone who wants to challenge me. I'm going to paste this in the Discord as well. Maybe. Where is the right channel looking to play? See if anyone's online. Worst case situation, I'm going to just play against Stockfish, that's fine as well. Alright, seems like there isn't anyone, so I'm not going to waste too much time. Wait, what's this email about? Man, I'm going to ignore the email for now. Since it's too... Let me just play against the computer instead. I'll keep this open just in case somebody suddenly accepts later. But okay, I'll leave this here. So I'll play against Stockfish maybe. Continue from here. I'll play computer. And I'll just play against Stockfish level 8, but I'm not going to use any time. Just so I can talk about the moves and ideas and things like that. Alright. So now it's my turn. Oh, the advance. Wait. Did I start from the advance or did I? Wait, did I start from advance? And my advance is also doable. So the line that I wanted to go for is... What did I want to go for? Have I already forgotten? Oh no. Wait, this is this. Wait. I messed up. I closed the wrong tab. Here. So here is the thing, and previously we have already decided to go for this b4 and then the f6. These are the things that we have seen in the advanced, so we will stick with that. So in this case we will go with b4, the idea to prevent c5, but if c5 is played anyway, we have decided we are going to take it. So while practicing, it's a good idea to refresh the idea of those moves. So knight c6 is defending the pawn, but we are fine with that. We can just continue with our plan and play bishop to b2. Just attack the pawn. So e5 is now enabled after playing knight to c6, and I think in similar positions we were able to play something like e3, but in this case that's e4. Let me take, we will lose a knight. Wait, did we mess up already? Oh no, I think I messed up already. I think I was supposed to play e3, is it? No, I was supposed to play queen a4. This is why I should review lines. because in the real game you forgot about it. In this case, since I'm alone now, I'm not going to refer to the lines I studied. I can always just start a new game later. So the common ideas that we saw earlier were queen a4 and e3. e3 in this scenario, if let's say e4, I will have to retreat. So that isn't good. So instead, I'll play queen to a4. In that case, if e4, I can take. But if bishop takes, I can take and something like that. So I'll play queen to a4. I'm expecting bishop to d7, maybe. Yeah, bishop to d7. And now I think I can play e3 because there are no discoveries. And if the knight goes back, I can go back as well. I'm just going to play e3. If e4, now I can take because it's dependent on my pawn. Can I take? I'm starting to doubt myself. If I take, knight takes, it unleashes an attack on my queen. I can retreat my queen all the way back. But then I lose a piece. Yep, so I guess I have to go back. So I already messed up. Nice. I only prepared 5 moves and I already messed up. This is always dangerous, so I'll take with pawn. So I can take it knight. Then I'll just retreat. Oh, I can't retreat. So retreat all the way back. Okay, I'm already in a worse position, so this looks bad. Attacking my bishop. If I take, then my thing is attacked. But it's fine. The more pressing issue is this square over here. So I think what I'll do is play. This looks very, very bad. I think I'm going to get crushed soon. Hit to c3. Oh, this looks very, very bad. Oops, that's the game. Anonymous accepted the game. Hello. I guess I'll start with this. Hey. Oh, it's Mary, I guess. Yeah. So very quickly, I'm just going to take back and get lost and lose first. I'm going to lose very, very quickly. Yeah. Only move. Takes. Force me up the board even further. Might as well take, right? Check. Force me up further. Oh, just castles. I want to play d4 just to cut these pieces off. Okay. If I go back, there's no. Oh, there is. I was just about to say there is no, but there is. Oh, the computer doesn't even need to win my queen. Computer doesn't even need to win my queen. This is a checkmate. I have to run. I can't run. Okay. That ended quickly. So wait, let me just double check. What move did I miss? In the study. So in the advance, I did this. C5 was played. I took. Knight c6 was played. Oh, I haven't looked at this yet. No wonder. I only looked at the accepted variation. Is it? Well, oh, I only looked at this after knight to f6. After knight to f6, then c5. I've seen this, but I haven't looked at what happens after c4 immediately and this and this. I did play this knight to b2 and then e5 was played. So d3 here immediately was the right way to go. The problem is e5, right? E4, right? What do you do with e4? Oh, just knight takes d4. Yeah, yeah. So this was a hole you can see very quickly in the repertoire against the computer because we just plays the best moves there. Oh, game aborted. It's right to move. It's back to move, isn't it? Wait, why is it? Oh no, I made the thing wrong. My bad. I'll repeat it. And this is what. Let's go. Play the moves and continue from here. Play with a friend. 3+2. Play as white. Wait, am I playing as white? Just do that again. This position. Continue from here. Play with a friend. Yeah, I'm playing as white. Yeah, so this is a new thing. My bad, I didn't even realize that. Right, nice. Does this work? Okay, this works. Right away we get something that we haven't prepared yet. C6. Transpose it into Slav. Never mind, we have some inspiration from like the games that was from the Jaden Wong vs Evan Billion Chan game. This was somewhat of a transposition. Although I haven't read anything here, I have read it like a year ago. I forgot a lot of it already. But we do know what we're trying to go for. Like this structure is sort of what we're trying to go for. And we do remember like the general move order that we have seen on how we can transpose from the previous position to this position. So I'm just going to play b3 over here, trying to go follow through with our plan. Singapore's former national champion likes to play b3, bishop d2 in this line. Yes, I'm aware. So over here, bishop g4 is a move that we have never seen before in our repertoire. My instincts tell me that I would love to play knight to e5 over here. Because this bishop to g4 move is very effectively preventing me from playing g3, bishop to g2. Because if I do play g3, bishop g2, then after taking, then it will sort of ruin my pawn structure, like a reverse Trampolsky sort of thing. So I think I'll just play knight to e5 on. So I'll force the bishop to make a decision on where it wants to go. Sort of an advantage of not playing e3 or e4 so earlier. So now it's targeting this knight over here. I'm completely fine with that. I'll just continue through with my plan. Defend the knight. Another nice thing about this knight to e5 move is that in the case where c5 pawn is taken, I can capture my knight and I get the nice knight from before. Now I'm going to follow through with the plan, build this structure, even though it's against this sort of bad pawn, right? It's so uncomfortable. Do I want to care about the knight? Okay, I don't have to. Might as well just play, just continue. Can capture my bishop. If f6, I can just retreat, I think. I'm fine with that. And I'll just castle. So take 6. In this position, I'm fine with just going back. I want to keep my bishop pair. And then I will complete my development since not even complete my development. It's like now that I have my bishops on 9 squares, I'm going to make this bishop the saddest piece in the world by playing something like d3. So this is sort of like what we see here in the position that we analyzed earlier. Like this is a very similar position to what we've seen here. Alright. So see over here, a6 is played. I guess trying to break the pawn structure with a move like b5. The most instinctual way to play would be to play something like a4 to stop that, but is it really necessary to stop it when we already have this? Is it more important to play knight to d2 or is it more important to stop it here? Let's say if we play a4, does it really stop it? Can black just go ahead and play the same thing? We take. Take, take, take. We sort of win the pawn, but at the expense of our pawn structure. On the other hand, if we just develop our knight and black does try and push, I think we're still happy with our triangle formation, so I guess I'll just develop, not go for anything fancy. Maybe try and get the knight to fill in the squares. Don't have to be too hasty, I guess. But if white tries to play something like a5, we're going to go a4, then maybe I'll play a4 myself to stop it. So for those of you who don't know, this is Mary. He is 2000 plus rated on Lichess and much better than me. I've only won like one game or something like that against him before. Okay, so we see over here some intention to open up the C file. I think what I want to do is to take advantage of my space advantage on the king side. I want to prepare something like this in the future. So maybe I will start with a3. Oh, there's very little time. Maybe I should have made it blitz. So my idea is just to slowly advance on the queen side and squeeze. I don't know what that move does. Maybe to prepare e5. I can capture it by knight. And now I unleash this. So I'm expecting something like bishop to e7 maybe, but that allows a fork. So I think I'm in a better position already. So although this bishop isn't too happy, after I expand on the queen side, it will slowly break things up and my bishop will be able to exert influence from the king side. So that's one of the advantages of the Fian capital. And these two pawns over here are still very, very nice and nicely restricting this bishop over here. So it's taking some time to think, maybe realizing the issue with the pawn structure and also the fork. So nice thing about having these two pawns being so laid back, right? I can very quickly just push and then get into the king side after I take here, for example. Okay, so it decides to give this up. Give up the exchange. And now I think I'm happy with getting my queen into play as well. I want to play this move maybe. I'm happy with trading here because this move has to be played. Okay, and then now I'm going to play queen here. This bishop is still set, this bishop is also set. I want to get my rooks ready and then I'm going to break on the queen side. That's my idea. I'm just going to play this move. I'm not afraid of that. If here does this... Oh, we're running low on time actually. I'll just play it anyway. This I can always just straight queens. Counter influence from this side of the board. Just block. It's defended. I'm happy with this. To defend. Running very low on time. I still want to do this eventually. If this, I can just push. This bishop is now trapped. Retreat. Come back here. Win this pawn. If takes, I can take. Oh, I just blundered my queen. I'm lost. Yeah. That was nice. That was interesting because even though it was a line that we have never actually studied before, but we still managed to get sort of a Reti system kind of position, and we are able to actually do what the Reti wants to do, which is to try and hold back on the center and then slowly counter attack it afterwards. And I think we were in a nice position, even managed to win an exchange over here. In this case, we were guaranteed to either mess up the pawn structure or win the bishop pair, right? Because we're attacking a bishop, we're attacking a knight over here, which is only defended by the G pawn, and we're also threatening a fork, which was very, very nice. So this is kind of promising because even against a much stronger opponent, although obviously you're playing very fast, we still lost. But it's nice to see some of the threats and some of the positional richness within the position. That even though this bishop was very sad facing this type of pawn structure, it enabled this c4 knight, which can come into existence by, let's say, this maneuver that we have seen in our game, or in the other one in the other way that we've also explored in our opening preparation with knight a3, knight c5, as knight c4 as well. So this can also exploit the dark squares that are left vacated if black decides to counter the signature Fianchetto bishop in the Reti opening. So I think that's a good place to stop for now. To improve the repertoire, you can of course read more books, play more games, study more lines. You can use your computer in analysis as you go further and deeper. You can also come. Oh, I forgot one more thing that I wanted to include is opening tree, right? So the nice thing about opening tree is it can prepare against specific opponents, but it also helps to build a repertoire. Because if you go over here, you can pick up games from Lichess, and for example, like we know that CM Jaden over here is a Reti player. We can just copy his Lichess name. We might say that, oh, you know what, only 2 games were in the Reti in this tournament, we want more, right? We can just go over here and we can see some of the more dubious or the more trappy lines or the full repertoire, what the auxiliary openings that Jaden also plays to work with the Reti opening as well. And also very importantly, since we know that Jaden plays the Reti as white, when we want to figure out what to play as black, we can also garner inspiration from his repertoire, because most likely he will also play a repertoire from black that has similar ideas or similar positions or similar nature as the Reti opening, and we can use it as reference as well. So for example, we can see over here in the line that we played before c6, c6, b3. Okay, this wasn't found in. Wait, was it correct? So it doesn't use this move order, and then I'll just transpose. What was the line? G4, G2. Is it really not? Does he really never played this variation before? What was the line? Okay, maybe he hasn't played this specific variation before, but you get my point. You can use opening tree for this purpose. Also, besides using chessgames.com, you can also use this new function that opening tree has added for notable chess players. You can add in like Joaquin, Bobby Fischer, Magnus Carlsen, Richard Reti. You can also see Joaquin games, for example, as white. Analyze those games. Because remember that Wikipedia said that Joaquin played knight f3 earlier in the 1920s, but because that earthquake, is that a thunderstorm coming or something? But yeah, anything starting with knight f3 and c4 is considered to be the Reti, so maybe we can use opening tree instead of chessgames.com, where instead of more traditional, instead of using ECO to find your games, you can use an opening tree instead, which is very, very helpful. You can see like this, and then you can see specific how Joaquin played, what was his win rate. Obviously, he's a very, very, was much stronger than his peers, so he has a very high win rate. You can see, for example, in c6, what are the other options? There was like b3, for example, 6, b4. This is all very standard. Okay, in this sort of position, yeah, what sort of things white would play here, and you can find games like this as well. So a multitude of resources, all of them are free. If you want to pay, you can also go to Chessable courses, things like that as well. But I just wanted to share a lot of the process and where you can get a lot of information, especially in such an online era, to study games and lines and how to make your decisions to actually plan these sorts of repertoires and things like that. So in the next episode series part, if I do decide to make one, I might be studying this in my own time, and then I might show you a more polished, more complete repertoire and how to improve upon that after you have picked your lines and your flavors and things like that. Or I might be going into a repertoire from black side, which although might be similar in the process, has a lot more different considerations that you have to go through to actually come up with those conclusions. That being said, I think this is a nice way to stop. I'm not sure when I'll be streaming. I might release a schedule tomorrow for next week's or the next 2 weeks streaming schedule because my internship is going to be starting soon. And yeah, things will be getting busy again. Yeah, thank you for watching. See you guys in the next stream. And bye bye.